In the year 204 BC, a young Chinese commander stood before an impossible choice. Across the river waited an enemy army nearly 3 times the size of his own. His soldiers were exhausted, supplies were low. Retreat seemed like the only logical option. But instead of retreating, the commander ordered his men to destroy their own boats. As flames consumed their only path home, fear swept through the camp. The soldiers suddenly realized something terrifying. There was no escape. They could either win or die. What happened next became one of the most famous military stories in Chinese history. The army fought with such determination that they achieved a shocking victory over overwhelming odds. This wasn't luck. It was strategy. And it was only one of the many military lessons that ancient China gave to the world. For thousands of years, Chinese generals fought wars, defended kingdoms, and built empires. Through countless victories and devastating defeats, they discovered principles that remain relevant far beyond the battlefield. The first lesson was simple: know yourself. Most people have heard the famous words of Sun Tzu, "Know yourself and know your enemy." But few understand how revolutionary this idea was. Many leaders focus entirely on defeating opponents. Ancient Chinese strategists believed victory begins by understanding your own strengths and weaknesses first. A general who overestimates himself becomes reckless. A general who underestimates himself becomes fearful. True power comes from accurate self-awareness. The same principle applies today. Businesses fail when leaders ignore weaknesses. People struggle when they refuse to confront their own limitations. Ancient Chinese commanders understood that self-knowledge is the foundation of every victory. The second lesson was even more surprising. The best battle is the one you never fight. Western military history often celebrates dramatic battles and heroic charges. Chinese strategists viewed war differently. To them, war was expensive, unpredictable, and dangerous. The highest form of victory was not destroying an enemy. It was making conflict not necessary. Through diplomacy, alliances, psychological tactics, and strategic positioning, great Chinese generals often won before the battle even began. Sun Tzu famously argued that supreme excellence lies in breaking an opponent's resistance without fighting. Thousands of years later, successful negotiators, entrepreneurs, and politicians still follow the same principle. The third lesson came from patience. Many of history's greatest military disasters happened because leaders rushed. Ancient Chinese strategists believed timing was everything. Sometimes the smartest move was not advancing, it was waiting. Waiting for the enemy to make a mistake. Waiting for resources to improve, waiting for conditions to become favorable. Patience often appeared weak to outsiders, but in reality, it was a weapon. The fourth lesson involved adaptability. No battle plan survives unchanged. Ancient Chinese generals constantly adjusted their strategies based on terrain, weather, morale, and enemy behavior. They understood that rigid thinking leads to defeat. Water became a common symbol in Chinese philosophy because water adapts to every obstacle it encounters. It bends without breaking, changes without losing its nature. The greatest commanders learned to think the same way. And perhaps the most powerful lesson was psychological warfare. Ancient Chinese strategists understood something modern science would later confirm. Human decisions are driven by emotions as much as logic. Fear, confidence, confusion, hope. These invisible forces often determine outcomes more than weapons themselves. Some generals spread misinformation to create uncertainty. Others used deception to appear stronger than they actually were. The goal was not merely to defeat armies. The goal was to influence minds. Because once the mind is conquered, the battle is often already over. These lessons helped shape one of the longest-lasting civilizations in human history. They survived dynasties, invasions, rebellions, and centuries of change.
not because they possessed the strongest weapons, but because they understood something deeper. Victory is rarely about force alone. It is about preparation, awareness, patience, adaptability, and understanding human nature. Today, most of us will never command armies, but every day we face challenges, competition, uncertainty, and conflict. The battlefield has changed. Human nature has not. And perhaps that is why the greatest military lessons from ancient China continue to survive thousands of years after the last arrows were fired.